Welcome to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and we have a guest, someone who's been a good friend for a number of years, Marshall Jones. Marshall, welcome.
Welcome, Dale. Thank you.
Marshall is now the Associate Dean of the Rutgers Mason Gross School of the Arts. He's someone that we had worked together when I was president of Crossroads and has been the Crossroads producer, director, executive director, and just a talented gentleman in many ways. But in the arts, he has that entrepreneurial mindset. So I really wanted him on the show. So again, Marshall, thank you so much for being here.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Well, first I always like to start out with background. And so now, where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school and college? And how did you get into the arts?
Well, I went to high school at Hillside. We moved from Hillside, from East Orange to Hillside.
Okay.
Right before my senior freshman year. Mm-hmm. And Hillside did not have a drama program, so I started one because I liked watching movies. But you know, we didn't have iPhones back in the 70s, so I did the next best thing to tell stories. It's theater, and I really enjoyed the live aspect. And then went off to college at Rutgers. Really fortunate to study with some brilliant teachers. Avery Brooks, perhaps you're familiar with him.
Oh,
He's
yes,
a great actor.
Yeah.
And then one of the country's foremost directors in Hal Scott. So I had some great training. And I wanted to be a director.
Well, Marshall, first, I mean, the entrepreneur state of mind that you had the wherewithal in high school to start a drama program. Let me stay there. And so, what kinds of productions did you act? Did you produce? What were you doing in the drama club?
Well, the program, they only let seniors perform in the play. The seniors would do a senior play, and I thought that was just totally unfair. So I started a drama club, the Hillside Players, and we actually showed movies to raise money. We showed Brian's Song and another movie after school. And we then took that money to just put on some small one-act plays. Wow! And again, the entrepreneurial state of mind is in drama, and there's so much, and I love this show because I talk to folks, and they want to make they want something to happen, and they make it happen, and so that's great. And so you mentioned Avery Brooks, and so when I was president, I got to know Avery Brooks. What a great individual! As you know, Avery was a star on Star Trek. The first black captain on Star Trek, and other things, and. I've lost touch with him, but I really just impressed with how good a human being he was. And I know you've interacted with stars over the years, and so explain to the audience the Mason Gross School. What is the Mason Gross School at Rutgers? It is a school started in 1976. Mason Gross was president at the time, and he signed the legislation, or the I don't know what you call it. He signed the papers so that it became a separate school of the arts.
Wow.
So there's a theater arts department, a visual arts department, music, dance, and a few years ago we added filmmaking.
That is incredible, and so it's really grown. It's become one of the best known programs nationally.
Yes.
in many ways. And so you led it for how long? How long were you one of the leaders of Mason Gross?
Oh, I wasn't a leader. I was, I came back to teach. I replaced one of my old professors, Eric Krebs, who started the George Street Playhouse back in the 70s. So he retired, and they asked me if I was interested in replacing him, and I said yes. And that was in the fall of 2002. And I've been there ever since. But my job is I was head of the BA theater program. So these are students who are not direct students of the Mason Gross School of the Arts, but want to be theater majors in colleges throughout Rutgers. It's a more general degree. So I head that program.
Right. But through all, you were a renowned professor. You really were one of the leaders of Mason Gross, and you're very, very humble about all that you've done. And it's fascinating for me because, as you know, I had an opportunity. I had no experience in the arts, but I had experience in leadership and business. I had opportunity to be president of the Crossroads Theater Company when when they won the Tony Award. So I was on stage with Rick Kahn, one of the founders, the co-founder of Crossroads Theater, and I accepted the Tony Award on national television. And I always joke with my friends who are in theater that, oh yeah, I won a Tony Award. And but just that history, and people don't know how significant. And so you talk about Eric Krebs, I know, who was part of that. I didn't realize he was a professor, because I know Rick was close to him, and he was very instrumental with George Street and others and really helping Crossroads win a very, very difficult time. And so the arts community is in some ways very close, but there's all sorts of some challenges. And so you led Crossroads Theater for a number of years. What's been your experience with Crossroads?
Sure. I was the producing artistic director for 13 seasons, starting in 2007, and I left at the end of 2019. But the biggest challenge, there were a lot, but the biggest one is I took over in 2007, and you're a business guy, so you know what happened in 2008.
Yes,
the Great Recession. So it was really, really tough. I remember being interviewed by the Star Ledger in 2008, 2009, and they asked what was the toughest thing about running a theater. And I gave them a quote. It didn't make the paper, but I'll share the quote with you,
yes.
Which was, as a historically black theater company, we were used to getting the crumbs in terms of funding, and now there were no crumbs. So it was a really, really tough time, but we got through. And about time we were hitting our stride, 2015-ish, that's when we had to vacate the building so that the construction of the New Brunswick Performing Arts Center took over. So then we came back in the fall of 2019, and it was just time for me. It was time for me to leave to pursue my independent directing career, which is what I really wanted to do.
Excellent. And so for the audience and those in theater understand the roles of actors and then producers and directors. And so what is a producer? What is a director? We see this all the time. And I know I talk to a lot of people. It's amazing how many people don't really understand what those roles are. Then you have an executive producer. Could you just explain what are all those roles in the arts?
Sure. Well, each field is different, TV, film, movie, theaters, but you can kind of just say that the producer is the person that's in charge. They have the vision of the show, and they're responsible from soup to nuts. So selecting the play, selecting the director, the marketing, making sure there are fannies in the seats, obviously raising the money so that you can pay the creatives and the actors and so forth. The director is the person that provides the creative vision for the show. So he or she or they is a type of person that will come up with, he works with the designers and designing the sets and the costumes and so forth. If it's an original script and the playwright is still alive, the director works with the playwright. Maybe there's a scene or two that needs more clarity. The ending doesn't work. The ending of the first act doesn't work. So all of that stuff can be handled. But the biggest aspect of the producer is the money.
Right.
Raising the money. If it's nonprofit, it's through donors and writing grants.
Right.
And if it's on the commercial side, like Broadway, you have investors.
And one of the things that I learned at Crossroads is how the arts are so important to society. They're so important for the emotional wellness, the entertainment wellness, and so on. And yet they're so underfunded in America and other places of the world that they're given some. Why is that? And I understand. Am I true that is it true that Europe actually puts more money in the arts than the United States? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, they've been at this way longer than us as a country.
Right.
I mean, there have been civilizations here for over 1,000 years, but so there's an appreciation, there's a history, because they were functioning societies when TV didn't exist. So there was an appreciation of painting, appreciation of theater, and things like that. So here at this country, where so much is based on capitalism, if it's not going to be able to make money, it's not prioritized. I have a dear friend of mine from college who was from London, and I never had to ask him to come to see my shows because, you know, he grew up going to plays all the time over in the UK, and that just doesn't exist for us here in this country. And then you also have the economics of Broadway. When I was a youngster in college in the early 80s, a Broadway ticket was $25.
Right.
I would actually wait online 3 hours for the half-price ticket booth to save $12.50. Now the average Broadway ticket is about $175, $200.
Yeah, and even for average seats in some plays, you know, it's $1,000. It's $1,000. It really is priced out the middle class, like so many other things. And so, so let's begin to talk a little bit about your career. And so, you know, what have been some of your favorite producing and, you know, directing and even acting roles that you've had over the years? What has been some of your favorites?
Well, I never acted professionally. Well, kind of, sort of, but I pretty much gave up acting when I graduated from college and really wanted to direct. Actually, when you talk about the role and the value of college, I got the opportunity to be the producer of our student-run theater at Rutgers and Mason Groves called the Cabaret Theater, and I've been advising students who run it for the last 20 years. But getting the opportunity to produce, I started to like producing even more than directing because you get to control all aspects of the show. So I went off to grad school and got my my master's from NYU in theater management and producing, and then went on to do more producing.
Excellent. Hey, Marshall,
world famous Apollo Theater.
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's stop there because we're going to take a quick commercial break. I really want to get into your producing background, and so we're going to come right back after these commercials to Entrepreneur State of Mind.
Aloha! Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
Welcome back to Entrepreneur State of Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Dale Caldwell, and we have Marshall Jones really learning about the entrepreneurial aspects of theater. And so we just asked him about his producing background, and you were saying you've done some things at the world famous Apollo Theater in Harlem, New York.
Yeah, I was really fortunate at that time in my life to work there, and one of my tops was working with The Godfather, working with James Brown on his third Live at the Apollo album.
Wow.
It was great. He actually became kind of a father figure to me.
Really?
And I got a chance to see him many times over the years. He would reach out, or I would reach out when he was in Atlantic City or other kinds of places at the Garden State Arts Center on the Parkway. I saw him there, so that was really, really great. Also,
Marshall, stay there.
This wasn't something directly that I did, but something that I was really proud of.
Marshall, stay there.
Yeah.
Let's. I mean, so James Brown, and I love my guests often gloss over this. What was he like as a person? What was, people see this show personality and so on and mentor, but yeah, tell the audience, what was James Brown really like as a human being?
he was great with me. I mean, I think I was really young. I was 30 years old, and he treated me with utmost respect. Everybody around him were fearful and intimidated.
Right.
But I didn't, you know, I had a job to do, and I think he respected that. But also what we don't realize about James Brown is you look at him dancing, there's some wonderful clips on YouTube, but he was also an outstanding musician. He was essentially the conductor of the James Brown Orchestra.
Wow.
They would rehearse several hours before each performance. He wrote a lot of the songs, he did the orchestrations, he did the arrangements. He was a true musical genius that I don't think the world recognized his contributions in that regard.
Wow. See, the amazing thing, and I say this to young people, is that they see all these artists and they make it look easy. They don't realize how much work went into being a James Brown, being a Michael Jordan, being, you know, all these folks. They work hours and hours and hours and behind the scenes, and they're extraordinarily talented. And so I thanks so much, Marshall. Sorry to interrupt you, but I really wanted to. I mean, that's a big deal. James Brown is, you know, one of the American legends, and the late James Brown will always be remembered. So I'm sorry, you were going on to talk about some other projects.
Yeah, well, so if you asked me about some of my highlights with producing, so after I left the Apollo, I went to work for Madison Square Garden, and this is the 90s. This is when both the Knicks and the Rangers were winning. I left
a long time ago.
And the team really hasn't won since.
Right.
Obviously, I had nothing to do with that, but so we also Madison Square Garden purchased Radio City in the mid '90s, and my boss appointed me to lead a diversity committee to diversify the Rockettes. So that is something that I really focused on in '98, '99, and I'm really pleased that there's so many women of color who are on the line. Some of the people that I helped usher in are still there, or not necessarily dancing on the line, but are still a part of the Rockette world. And a dear friend who was a Rockette for 2 years in the early 2000s was just appointed at the head pastor for Riverside Church in Harlem. And her name is Adrian Thorne, and I'm really, really proud of her.
Oh, wow. At Riverside, my dad is a pastor, used to love Riverside, and I enjoyed. So, well, I didn't know you had a role in that, because that's a big deal. I mean, every Christmas they talk about the new diversity, the growing diversity of the Rockettes, and so that's fascinating. What else? I mean, you really have such an amazing entrepreneurial arts career. What other highlights would you like to share?
Well, then those are two things on the producing side. The directing side, I kind of got preoccupied with producing, even though I was trained at Rutgers as a director. But I started directing again about 8 years ago.
Okay.
And I was able to, I've done 2 off-Broadway shows and 1 taping for WNET. But one thing that I'm particularly proud of was my second off-Broadway show. I was hired as a replacement director for a show about the Little Rock Nine called Little Rock. This was in May of 2018.
Okay.
And I was called in to direct the show or redirect the show a week before our first preview.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it was the challenge of my life because it was not in the best shape.
Oh, interesting.
But,
wow.
After I saw the first run through, I told the cast we have a show there, and we're going to work really, really hard to pull it out over the next 7 days, and we did. The show, it was a commercial show, so it ran for the entire summer of 2018.
Okay.
We were a New York Times critic pick.
Wow.
You know, Little Rock Nine is Arkansas, so the First Lady and the former President Clinton came to see the show.
Oh, really?
Chelsea came to see the show.
Oh, wow.
Chelsea Clinton, and she tweeted it out. telling everyone to come see this show. So it was
I love it.
It was a great opportunity. And 5 of the Little Rock 9 actually came to our opening night. So
really? Really? Of the original Little Rock? Wow. And then where was it? Where was it? What theater?
It was done at a small theater. It's about 200-seater in the Village.
Oh, in the Village. Okay. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Excellent.
And that was, speak about entrepreneurial, that was produced and financed by Harvey Butler, a black male executive who put together the group to fund this because he believed the story of the Little Rock 9 was important.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, that's what an amazing history. And so I know you've rubbed shoulders with all sorts of great, actors and others. And so, now you're at Rutgers. What's the future and what's your role there and what are you trying to do? It's a new role for you. And I'm very, very excited that they selected you for this.
Well, thank you. Well, today marks the beginning of my 3rd week on the job. It's a newly created position, Associate Dean of Equity for the Mason Grove School of the Arts. So kind of like what I talked about that I did 25 years ago at Radio City, diversifying the Rockettes, I'm charged with helping to diversify the School of the Arts. And what I mean by that is making sure that what our new president, Rutgers President Jonathan Holloway, says, that Rutgers aspires to be a beloved community,
right,
that we actually do that in terms of strategic alliance and actionable items.
Yes.
So that we don't just have a brochure with black and brown people, photos of black and brown people on the website, but it is in action, so that we want to be more diverse in terms of our student body, but we need professors that look like them. We need a curriculum that reflects not just European aesthetics, but also aesthetics all around the world, so that these students can reach their potential and they can go out and create art for the 21st century.
Well, and it's so important. I mean, the arts, the arts have been so important to communities of color. It really is amazing that, and I mean, many of the most famous and most successful folks in the arts are black and brown, and it's amazing that the arts aren't diverse. So I'm just so happy that you're doing that. You're looking at that. People take that for granted, but that's so important to be consciously focused on really diversifying, so that people see themselves in the arts. And so good. I'm happy to help any way that I can. So what else? What other thoughts do you have about the arts in America?
Well, I think the pandemic, we actually saw how valuable the arts were.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Netflix subscriptions went through the roof, but somebody has to write those shows. Somebody has to act in those shows. Somebody has to design the costumes and the makeup, painting the sets. All of that involves artists.
Yes.
And, what we ideally, if we value that, the arts, just like we value, say, money or celebrity, then I think younger folk can see themselves in these kinds of opportunities, and we would have a more inclusive framework in terms of the stories that are being told and the art that's being put forth.
Well, and you and I have talked about this, that the mental health issues as coming out of the pandemic have never been a bigger challenge than they are now. And the arts play such a role in helping people mentally, emotionally. It helps, young people, get out of their maybe economically challenged communities by acting it out as artists. And so it is just such an important part of society. And I know you're doing your part to grow it. But Marshall, we're at the end of time. I want to thank you so much. I mean, you're a true entrepreneur in the world of the arts. Rutgers is lucky to have you, and I'm looking forward to hearing more and more about the great things you're doing. So thanks again, Marshall.
Thank you.
Take care, and I want to thank you all for watching Entrepreneur State of Mind. As I said, Marshall Jones and Rutgers University is at the top of its game in the arts. So check them out. go to their website and enjoy what they have to offer. Take care. We will see you next week on Entrepreneur State of Mind.